Well, hello and welcome to the Profit Express. I'm Tim Healy, and I'm inviting you to join me each and every Wednesday so you can be prepared to win the battle for business. That's right. Thanks for being on board. Thanks for sharing some of your time. And as always, a big thank you to our good friends and sponsors at Corbett Public Relations, where they are promoting and protecting businesses and brands for over 30 years. So do yourself a favor. Visit Bill and his team at CorbettPR.com. That's CORBETT. PR.com. Welcome aboard, everybody. So why should you listen? Great question. I always have to make it worth your while. Today's guests are a group of entrepreneurs, a duo, a tandem, a team of entrepreneurs who took a business that failed and put them $200,000 in the hole to creating a new business that they sold that was successful, and they're part of another business currently, as well as being authors of a best-selling book. And it evolves around one of my passions in life, and that is coffee. So the insights that they're about to share with you are tremendously valuable. They are real world. They are relatable. And that's why I have them on today. They are the kind of insights that are going to help you, my fellow entrepreneur, my fellow sales professional and small business owner. The insights will help you win the battle for business. So I said my guests focus around the word of coffee. As you can tell with my beautiful display of Profit Express coffee mugs, and if you know the show and if you follow me, you know I love coffee. And it brings me back to a very fond memory I have with a local coffee shop here on Long Island called Mibs, M-I-B-S, where I spent countless late-night hours with a beautiful brown-eyed brunette sipping cappuccinos and espressos. Well, fortunately, the beautiful brown-eyed brunette, she became my wife, and fortunately, she's still around. Unfortunately, Mibs, the coffee shop, is not. Their doors have closed. And that is a similar story to a lot of local small coffee shops here on Long Island. They just didn't stand the test of time, and they folded and they closed their doors. Now the coffee shop landscape is filled with the behemoths, the Starbucks, and the Dunkin' Donuts. Now, I'll be honest, I do like Starbucks coffee, but when you walk into a Starbucks store, they have no coffee culture. It's sanitary, it's corporate. And Dunkin' Donuts, I walk in, it smells like chemicals. The coffee gives me heartburn. That's just my opinion. So to me, it's a crying shame that you don't have the charm of what was an independent coffee shop. And my wife, Carrie, and I, we talk about it a lot. We like, remember Mibs? And we would be having espressos and cappuccinos wired out of our mind until 1 a.m, but we had so many great memories, and, so much of our romance, happened in coffee shops. So that's why when I saw today's guests, I came across them on Instagram. They are the coffeepreneurs. They are a husband-wife duo, Andrew and Claire Bowen. And not only are they the owners of, what is a very successful business right now, and also the authors, of a best-selling book called The Daily Grind, where their sole mission is to help local independent coffee shops not just survive, but thrive. And I said, Eureka. Now, if they could just come here, they're based in the UK, and we're going to get into that. If they could come here and help some independents take off, I would be eternally grateful. So my passion for coffee is a part of the show today, and I know the insight of real hustlers and real entrepreneurs like Andrew and Claire is the insight that you're going to need to hear on the Profit Express. So it is a pleasure to welcome aboard the coffeepreneurs. How are you today?
We're good as gold, thank you.
Very well, and thanks for having us on, Tim.
No, it's my pleasure, and you're calling from England. We got about a 6-hour difference, so I assume you guys are hopped up on coffee. It's about midnight your time when we're recording this, so I appreciate you guys muscling up for the show. So
yeah, I think we had a couple of espressos before we came on just to wake us up.
Yeah, I have to be careful because I have enough natural energy that usual regular coffee does it for me. The espresso can take me over the edge. But in doing my research for the show, and like I said, I have a love for coffee. It's actually it's you know, it's a very personal thing for me. I drink two beverages in life. I don't drink alcohol. I drink coffee and water. That's basically it. And one thing I heard, I think it was Claire in one of the videos you did that kind of caught my attention. You said that this industry, the coffee shop industry, is littered with failure. That's a big statement. It's an unfortunate statement. Why do you think that is?
It is so sad that it's true. I think a lot of people come into the coffee business because it's an easy business to get into. It's a low barrier to entry. It
Right.
doesn't cost as much as opening a restaurant, and everybody knows how to run a coffee shop, or they think they know how to run a coffee shop, and that's the big difference. They think they know it rather than they do know it, and it's very easy to get sucked in, that to look at a coffee shop, look that it's busy, go in there and think, oh, there's people like me, I'll enjoy working here.
Mhm.
It's got good hours, I'm not going to be working all night. And a lot of people go into the industry without doing their research. And I think that's the first big mistake that they make.
So low barrier to entry. Okay, so probably not as much capital as a restaurant, a typical restaurant. So they get sucked in that way, and then they think they know more about what it takes to run a coffee shop than they do, and that's the beginnings of the recipe for failure. Is that right?
100%. And they don't do their research.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of people open up in the wrong site, the wrong location, the wrong size, and they don't know what they want to achieve. You can no longer open a coffee shop and sell great coffee, good cakes and sandwiches and be a
Mm-hmm.
success. You've got to be different. You've got to be famous for something. So they've got to work out from the very, very beginning, before they jump into this business. They've got to work out what they want to achieve, what they want to be, as I said, famous for, their why. And if you get
Mm-hmm.
your why, what you want to achieve, who you want to serve,
Mm.
in line, that will feed the information that you need to where to open. And we've always said that you would never open a vegan cafe in the middle of a meat market. So you've got to open in the right place, where your customers, your avatar, is outside that door, because people don't travel far for a cup of coffee.
Well, certainly, yeah. I mean, as we all know, the importance of location, you can never underestimate that. And you had your experience in a coffee franchise, didn't work out. You guys, revamped it, rebranded it, created a successful, group of coffee shops. So you obviously have firsthand experience, plus being best-selling authors of a book called The Daily Grind. So from your experience, what makes a great coffee shop?
The first thing, it starts from the top. It starts with the culture of the owner, particularly as an independent. You can't, unless you get that culture right, you can't find good people to work for you. They won't. It's not a case of just making rules and making people stick by the rules anymore. It's about creating a culture that allows people to deliver great hospitality service,
Mm-hmm.
and the best hospitality team in your town will work in the best environment. So it starts with the right culture. The mistake we see lots of people make is it's too small. Your sales are capped based on how many seats you've got. So if you open a 12-seater cafe or a 20-seater diner, there is a limit how much you can take. It's just numbers. If you've got 20 seats and your average spend is $10, and they spend half an hour with you at maximum time, there's a limit how much you can take, and it won't be the
Right.
straight extrapolation of that, because it's not a linear business. So you'll be at maximum for probably 20% of the day. The rest will be tailing up and tailing down. So the size is a big thing. People are afraid, I think, to commit to a larger lease or a more expensive lease or a more expensive property because of that cost. But what they
Sure.
end up with is a job, not a business. So and then that job, because it is an all-consuming job, it's very hard if you've got a small business and you are running it yourself. It's difficult to stand away from it, and that's the problem. And then people fall out of love with their business effectively because it's not big enough, it's not making enough money. They can't afford to put a manager in there.
And they can't afford a day off or to go on holiday or anything like that. So they do fall out of love with their business, and usually, within a couple of years of some coffee shops opening, you can see the tracking of their journey, if you like, from being bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and opening, and then the owner just getting tireder and tireder and sadder and sadder.
Yeah. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors.
You mentioned something very important I want to go back to, where they didn't get a big enough footprint, so they're not generating enough revenue. They can't afford a manager or go on vacation. So here's my question then to both of you. I'll throw it out. How many of the coffee shops that you work with, that you consult with, where when they come to you, that it's just is basically a job and a salary for the owner? How often do you see that?
Too often, in truth, far too often.
Really?
We like to get on the journey with them before they commit to the size, because we can help them sort of understand that. But we see you just look at how many small units are available for rent. Small restaurants, small cafes, small hospitality venues are out there for rent, and that there's a reason for that. Is because they churn over so much. So we do see far too many people that have got that situation, and then there's a lot of smoke and mirrors out there as well, in terms of when you go to buy a business like that off somebody. There's always room for massive improvement, or we're running it 4 days a week, but you can open it 7 days a week, or you can open till 10 o'clock at night, all that sort of stuff. And it's really hard to get to the bottom of it. And if you're new into the industry, you can be taken in by that queue out the door. Is the queue out the door because they've got a great trade, or is it because they're just slow at serving? Is it busy? Is every seat full in there because because it's a busy place, or is it they've just got the wrong type of seat there that makes people stay there too long?
So all right. So again, you work with independent coffee shops. So they'll reach out to you, I guess, when they're thinking of opening up, or maybe they've just opened up. When does somebody typically reach out to you two?
Well, a little bit of both.
Right.
You get
Okay.
we like, as Andrew's already said, we like to catch people before they spend their money on the wrong things, and stop them, prevent them losing their shirt. But you get a bit of both. If we can't catch them, then they often come to us after they've opened in the wrong place, and it's a distress call, help.
Oh God.
That's heartbreaking for us, because the whole point that why we do this is we want people to succeed, and we want people to not lose their shirt.
So all right. Here's my next question then. So not everybody is a right fit for a particular business. Is there a particular personality or profile that makes a good owner of a coffee shop?
Well, I think, as Andrew alluded to earlier, the culture has to start from the top. So the person at the top, the owner, the manager, they have to have the hospitality gene to start off with. And that is, they have to smile, they have to engage people, they have to want to talk to people. They have, it's a people business, and you've got to want to talk to people. If you've got the top of the business who wants to hide in the kitchen, well, that's never going to work. They have to cascade down this hospitality gene to make everyone in that business smile and enjoy it. So yes, there are people that we meet and we think, you'd make a great manager, you'd make a great business owner, you're really a great fit for this hospitality business, and there's also people that we talk to that we think,
Yeah.
perhaps it's not for you.
To give you a little example, when we used to when we to give you a little example, when we used to run our business, our team, we used to go in and out of our shops and talk to customers as if they were our best friends. And so many times the team used to say to me, "How do you know that guy? How do you know them?" I said, "Well, I've never met before, but it's my job to make them feel I do know them." It's something as simple as that just will. People come to you, in a coffee shop, you're not selling coffee. That's not what you're selling. That's part of it. But people come there for so many other things. And it is about the third place. It is about, meeting friends or doing work or, meeting your future wife.
Exactly.
There's so much goes on. We've seen that happen. We've seen people come into our business. We saw them get together. We saw them get married, have kids, and the kids grow up. And we saw that. And that's one of the things that gave us so much pleasure and enjoyment.
It did,
running our business.
All right, so let me ask you this then. So if somebody comes to you, and you say its culture starts at the top, do you have a hospitality personality mindset or not? If somebody comes and they've got the dollars and they have good business acumen, but they are a crusty curmudgeon, and they just don't have, that warm personality, the hospitality. Will you tell them that? Will you be, painfully honest and saying, "I think you're going to suck at this"? Will you tell them that?
We do, and we're honest. We probably wouldn't say you'll suck at this, but we'll put it in a nicer way than that. But but the whole point is that we give our honest advice and our honest opinion, and if we think something won't work, we will say. And that's what makes us different.
Yeah,
we're not saying, "All right, you've got some money, give me your money." You'll be fabulous at that. Our job, if we stop somebody going into this business who wasn't right for this business, we've done our job.
Yeah, what we find is that a lot of guys, before they come to us, or the ones who are in trouble potentially, they'll come to us and they've had advice from the roaster or from the coffee machine manufacturer or from the landlord, all telling them it'll be a great place to open or a great machine to use or a great coffee blend to use. But ultimately, all they're doing is selling them what they've got. They're not giving them advice. And what we pride ourselves on is to give them honest, unbiased, full force opinions, not just because we're not selling them anything. We're just trying to save them from themselves in a lot of cases. And we find that's a good place to come from.
No, certainly. It's the right intentions, from a business model. So now you guys, I'm just curious, do you typically work with independents or people who are also looking to get into coffee franchises?
We do work with both. However, we would always steer somebody unless they were really well funded and had a 10-year plan to grow in a really, really good franchise with a good track record. Then we would say go ahead and do that. Most of the people who come to us don't have that amount of money. So going into a franchise really isn't an option for them. Most of the guys that come to us as independents really want to be their own boss. They don't want to work for someone else. A lot of them come off the corporate ladder. They don't want to suddenly carry on doing something that they're told. They want to invent their own business and be, be inspired by things as they go around, rather than wait for the Monday morning call to tell them what the new line is this week. So often, because of the independent people we attract, we don't necessarily attract those guys that want to do that corporate stuff.
So it's like the shop Mibs that I had so many fond memories of that unfortunately is no longer around here on Long Island. But so when you have just one coffee shop, it's hard to make a lot of money. If it's only has 20, 30, 40 seats, it's only going to generate so much revenue. So how many of your clients that you work with, once they've established, they have store A, and store A has become successful. How many of them will come to you and say, okay, help me scale this so I can start to make, a multiplier effect? Well, all right, I'm all over the map now with this because my mind is running. So how many of your clients do you help scale? And then what does it take to scale a coffee shop?
Well, if we start from the scratch, what we always start with every client from the perspective is that everything we do with them when they're setting up their business, it should be done with the thought of actually being able to scale it in the future, even if they don't.
Okay.
So they have the systems in place, they have the processes in place, they have the checklists in place, they have the way of working, the way to induct people. So we always start from that, from scratch, because that's really critical to get that system and process in place. And actually, one of the most important things of running a coffee shop is that consistency. I'm sure you've walked past a coffee shop in the past and not gone in there because you've seen there's not your favorite barista's on day off, and that the guy that's in there or the barista that's in there doesn't make it quite the way you like it or quite the way it should be made.
Right.
And that we see that a lot, that lack of, you don't get that in the McDonald's because everything's the same. You don't get that in the Starbucks because it's all an automatic machine. So, there's no skill in it really because it's all been taken out of the hands of barista. But for independence, that systemic approach is really important. Systematic approach is really important. So we start with everyone on that. And, I think the rule in terms of being able to scale is to be able to put a manager in or have enough cash left at the end of the year to be able to afford a manager before you move to number two. There's no point in moving to number two or number three.
And it's also a really good test is to be able to go on holiday for a week, and that one coffee shop will run successfully without you because you've put all your systems and processes in place. You've given them checklists and you've given your team the authority to make decisions in a framework that you've put for them, but you've given them that authority to do that, and then you can go on holiday and then it's still there when you come back. One from our experience when we first started, there wasn't a little Andrew and Claire on our shoulder that we would have loved to have had, and we went from the first store we opened in January, and the second was in April. So
of the same year.
Yeah.
Wow.
And in the same year, and very, very quickly, we learnt we went from the first one that was running great, we went to the second one, and funnily enough, the first one sort of dropped off when we were in the second one. When we go back, and it would come back up again, because we didn't realize we learnt as we went along that the systems and processes, we had to give the manager the authority to make decisions rather than be on the phone to us all the time saying, what should I do? So it's, as Andrew said, when you starting off, you should have in your mind, am I going to have one? Am I going to have 10? Am I going to build it up to 10 and then sell it as a going concern? So everything has to be working. Each shop has to be working on their own, individually on their own, to be able to make it work when you move to the next slide.
And what we find in terms of scale is that where we've got clients that are running a really good business and it's become a local institution. That's what a lot of our independent, clients become, because they are sort of the hub of the community. They get lots of opportunities coming their way, opportunities to open, because landlords will approach them because they don't want a corporate in there. Would you like this opportunity? We're thinking about it. So we see that all the time. The trick for them is to understand, the metrics of the new site, so that they don't take something on, their ego's not scratched too much, and they understand that they need to make money out of number two. And it ideally geographically helps as well. So if you're particularly, if you can take over a town, 3 or 4 in the town, it's much easier to operate than it is, in cities 100 miles apart. So that geographic connection is really, then we had 3 sites fairly close together, and we became a really well-known local brand. So people would go into Oxford and they would see our shop in Oxford because they shop with us in in Abingdon, and the two closest are about 5-6 miles apart. So on that cross shopping thing, suddenly you get a little bit of brand recognition then.
Of course. Now, all right. So, Claire, let me go back to something you said. It was quite interesting. So, you build up one shop, it's successful, so you create the second shop. But then when you're at the second shop, you see the sales of the first shop dip. So you kind of realize, and I think a lot of business owners, you guys tell me, do they have a problem? You have a process. You hired a manager for shop one, but when the owners in shop two, they don't delegate or they don't empower. Is that what often happens that prevents scalability?
Yeah, obviously having the right person in charge of that of both sites is vital, but also we learned from our own experience that you have to empower people to make decisions, and we after we realized that, we went back and corrected the mistakes that we found, so that we could empower them to make a decision.
I think we had pretend managers. We thought we had managers in, but we realized that we were so close as owners to it that they waited for us to make any decisions or anything like that. So the minute it happened when I broke my collarbone, that was the pivotal point for us, wasn't it?
Yes, that was a major point for us. We were skiing, and in the French Alps, and Andrew broke his collarbone, and everyone said, "Oh, Claire, you've got to drive all the way back to the UK." And I wasn't worried about driving all that way on my own. I was worried about what we were going to do on Monday morning in the business. And we realized very quickly, yes, I learned how to plumb taps in and fix CCTV cameras on things I'd never dreamt that I'd have to learn how to do. Right. But we learned very, very quickly that we had to work on our business and not just in it.
Now, let me jump topics for a moment. There's something in a video of yours, Claire, that caught my attention. You talk about what's going to distinguish one coffee shop from another, and certainly service is one of the key elements, and you got to have wow service. And you said something I thought was great. You said your service has to be Instagrammable. What does that mean?
Well, I love that word, actually.
I love it too.
But what I mean, in all the socials, there's so many socials now, and people scroll on their phones. You want a post that you put out there that people stop. They're scrolling, they stop to look at your post. It has to be wow, not just in the service and in the surroundings, but the actual looks wow, so that when it goes past a table, that you take a plate past a table, everyone turns to look at it and go, "Oh, what's that? Yeah, I want one of those." Right. And that's what I call Instagrammable.
Okay, I love it. Thank you. Now, okay, let me go back to just my own selfish interest in a coffee shop. When Starbucks, really started to gain traction in the U.S., we had gone to Starbucks, and in my opinion, they were a real coffee shop. They had the barista, they were grinding the coffee. You could smell the coffee being ground. It was fantastic. Then they grew, they became corporate. And I think, Andrew, you might have referred to it earlier. You walk into Starbucks now, I don't know how it is in Europe, I'm saying in the U.S., you don't smell them grinding coffee anymore. And they don't do, they used to pound the grounds for the espresso, and they don't do any of that anymore. Everything is buttons, and it's so sterile. And that's what I miss with an independent.
No, you're right. That Howard Schultz famously went back to Starbucks after leaving the first time. He's left again now, but he left the first time and went back. And after they'd made so many changes to the place, and the smell of sort of food was overwhelming the shop as opposed to the smell of coffee. Right. They've invested a lot of money in these really expensive coffee machines that pretty much do everything for you. The steam ones are all fully automatic. The barista doesn't texture the milk. The grind is done automatically in the machine, so you can't hear it, the whole thing is it's quiet. Actually, you want to hear that sort of that clatter, the bang, the knock, and the the tamping
Yeah.
of the machine. That's part of the theatre, and they've lost all that theatre because they realise that they couldn't scale, they couldn't train, they didn't want to train, I think, people sufficiently enough to deliver the skill of the barista. So they tried to they thought, well, how can we scale this while maintaining consistency? So they brought these really expensive machines in. They're 30 grand. They're about double the price of a normal coffee machine. And they are all automatic. They do give a consistent product, but all the theatre is missing. And that's a big part of the independent, a big part of the skill of the specialty coffee scene now.
Very much so. And people love, as you said, going in there and talking to the barista as they're putting love into their coffee and lovingly doing the latte art and all, and talking to the the customer. And Starbucks has done a great job of educating the public on coffee, because before Starbucks, Costas of the world arrived, people used to say, "Do you want milk or sugar in your coffee?" They've done a fantastic job, but they are a big corporate operation now, and now is the time for the independent to shine.
Oh, okay, so this is a good point then, because yes, they did introduce coffee to the world, or certainly to America, Europe, and it went from there. Because before that, people were just buying cups of coffee from diners in America in those blue and white, Greek diner cups for 50 cents.
Yeah.
And the coffee was disgusting. So then, again, Starbucks has kind of gone, all the way to the other side where, and you said it beautifully, Andrew, they lost the theater, they lost the feel, the emotion, the clanging, the smell, all of that. So how then does a small independent compete with the Starbucks who's down the block?
Well, we have a lot of our customers are to ask us the same question. How can I compete? I can't charge more than the Starbucks down the road,
Right.
but they're better than the Starbucks down the road. The quality of the ingredients they put in their food, they're local, they're organic. They source the best possible ingredients for their products, but they don't have the confidence to charge more. And the reality is, if you're better than Starbucks, people will pay what it's worth.
So it is that challenge of it is the challenge of, if you offer a better service and there is enough people out there who are able to pay for a better service, or will be prepared to pay for a local and independent, a family-run store. But you've got to be brave with your pricing, and you've got to make sure that you maintain the standards and qualities in the branch as well, in the shop as well. There's no point we see so many people open up a coffee shop and they spend all this money, all their savings, making it look stunningly great. It opens up, it's lovely. Then they don't charge enough. They don't make enough. 2 years later, they can't afford the refit. They really need some new chairs, but they'll get a bit of tape out and they'll fix them or whatever. They can't afford the clothes to paint it. They need a new floor, all those things, and gradually it goes down. And that's all because they're not charging enough in the first place.
And also, they as I said before, they source all these wonderful local ingredients, but they don't tell anybody. They've got this amazing story.
Yes.
Of how they set up. There's a family business, and we're doing it because of X, Y, and Z, and we want to help the local community, and we're supporting this supplier because they're better than everything else. But they don't tell anybody. It's a big secret, and they've got to be confident enough to say, right, this product is better because this is our story, and stick to the story and make sure everyone, all their teams, stick to the same story and tell it.
Yeah. How many times you go into a local coffee shop and when you get talking to people, you say, where do you get that? Where's that cake made? Or they made it from Granny's recipe from 150 years ago, and the cocoa comes from a special farm of one of their uncles or something. All that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But when you look at the label, it just says chocolate cake.
No, I mean, listen, we all know, regardless of what the business is, stories sell. Human beings relate to and connect to stories. And Claire, you both have said it beautifully well. So many of these small independents have great stories, but they either lack the confidence or the smarts to tell the story.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what it comes down to. Now, listen, I do want to talk. I see the book, right? Beautifully placed, by the way. Beautifully placed in between your two shoulders. I like that, by the way. Well done. The daily grind. So it's
not life size. That's not life size.
That's okay. That's all right. It caught my eye. So, excuse me. So not only are you guys, as successful as the coffeepreneurs, you've written a best-selling book, which is, certainly not easy. What was the experience like in writing the book, and how has it helped you guys in doing what you do?
Well, we decided to write a book, and it took 6 months to write it.
Really? Okay.
We wrote it together. We set ourselves a deadline, and Andrew's good at getting up very early in the morning, and I used to get up and deliver babies during the night. So in my previous life, so I thought I'd stay in bed a bit longer. So he used to do 2 hours from 5 to 7 writing this book, put it into Dropbox, and then I'd get up at 7, and between 7 and 9, I'd carry on writing it.
Right.
And after 6 months, we had a book, and which we published. And it went really well.
Yeah, we wrote it in the way that we would go about opening a shop from scratch in the future. So we the chapters are in a logical order. Starts off with the why, then it moves into how do you get the location. We got a lot of information on how to get the location, because we know that it's such an important part. People are lazy, effectively. Customers are a little bit lazy. Don't get that the wrong way, but they won't travel miles for a coffee. It needs to be a part of their daily routine. It needs to be part of their day. Yeah. So that's such a big part of there. And then we tried to then capture everything else around how do you get the great team, how do you build a decent menu, how do you manage your profitability, what do you do about marketing. So and we try to make it in not too complicated as well. So it's not, there's tons of information in there. There's all the key points, but we haven't gone into the finite detail just because we could. We thought we want to make you aware of all these things you need to be aware of, because you don't know what you don't know.
So it's real good insight from start to finish without overwhelming somebody, to give them a sense of, hey, maybe having a coffee shop is something I'm interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was the whole point. And I think that's the one of the secrets of its success. Actually, it's quite a straightforward book to read, and people come and meet us with it, and I got a copy, and it's covered up with with their notes and post-it notes, all that sort of stuff.
Because what we wanted people to do was to write all over it. To write notes and put a little post-it thing and go back to that and dip in and out of it. It wasn't meant as a book that you read and put on the shelf and it collects dust. It's meant for you to go back and forth as you doing your coffee journey sort of thing, to let me go back and have a look at that again and write all over it.
A manual of sorts. Now, all right, so I have to ask. I'm curious, because you are the husband-wife tandem of the coffeepreneurs. Now, come on, be honest now. This is the Profit Express. What is it like working with your wife and your husband and vice versa?
Well, he asked you first.
Well, no, I think it's lovely. To be honest with you, Tim, we started this journey about 20 years ago to working together, having not basically been in the same country for very long, because I worked the last part of my corporate career. I worked away all week in Europe. Claire was busy working as well, out with the family. So actually, then when we came together, there was a little bit of tension, I think, at the very beginning because we never worked together. But now we love it. It's great because we've got our roles, and I think that was an important thing at the beginning of our business, that we understood that we had strengths, and we had to lead our teams in the shops, because the shop, they're running a restaurant or running a cafe. People will come to me for a holiday. Andrew, can I book a holiday? And if I say no, they'll go and see Claire about it, or they'll come to yeah. So it's a bit about that. I hate to say it's like being a parent to young children, but you've got to you have those roles and responsibility. You've got to back each other up. Yeah. We learned that fairly early on, and Claire's an expert at sort of admin and spreadsheets and cash flows and all that sort of stuff. I'm a bit more sort of hands-on in the shops, but in reality, Claire's a better barista than I am now.
But we work to our strengths, and we did initially, as Andrew said, we'd go to bed and on a problem, and I'd wake up with the solution. And Andrew would wake up having slept all night. So we learned very, very quickly that our brains would work differently. And we had to, early on, we had to have timeout.
Yeah, and that's a rules for the house as well.
So timeout.
As well as rules for work, rules for the house.
So we had a timeout, and from a certain time, no more work. And we don't talk about work. Because I'm like multifunctioning. I can do other things and still think about, and Andrew likes to be concentrate on one thing.
So that's such a wife answer. I'm multitasking, multifunctioning. I wake up with the answer. I'll let you get away with that, Claire. It's okay. So listen, this has been a great conversation. So you have people. Again, you guys are based in Europe. You're based in England, UK. The show here is in the US. You've got somebody who's listening, somebody who has a passion for coffee, and they're thinking of getting into the business for any number of different reasons. And you guys have, what's now decades of experience combined in this business. So what is the one, and I want an answer from each of you, the one bit that is a must-have for somebody who is they haven't opened up yet. They're in the the research stage. What do you want to share with them at this critical moment before they invest in a coffee shop?
Well, I would say do your research, and do a deep research, and take advice from the right people. And as Andrew said earlier, a coffee machine manufacturer will advise you to have the coffee machine that they have for sale there and then, because it's perfect for you. There's an awful lot of people out there giving advice that's not individualized to you. It's a general advice. So do your research, get help and support from the right people, and talk to your family to make sure that you're both on the same page, so that if a husband and wife wanted to do it, that they're both on board with that decision.
Yeah. And for me, it's around if depending on your experience. So if you've never worked in hospitality before, we would say, listen, you probably need to go get a job in a coffee shop or a cafe or a restaurant just to feel what hospitality is like, because we get a lot of people who come from an office background. Believe it or not, a lot of people from IT or accountants and people like that come feel, because there's an affinity with coffee and accountancy and IT, that they want to come. So, but if they haven't worked in a coffee shop, that's the first thing I'd say. You need to do that. And I'm building on Claire's thing around that thing. It's the partnership as well. So if you can try and do it with someone, it's much easier. But agree that partnership agreement at the beginning. Do the prenup before the problems start.
That's great. Now, although when you said accountant, I got a little nervous. You know, I don't know how hospitable some accountants are. You know, I've had my
Well.
share of not friendly accountants. But anyhow, no, listen, that's great advice. It's the prenup and it's research. But I thought you were going to say, I'm a little surprised you guys didn't say, buy the damn book, The Daily Grind. I mean, that's where you got to start, right? I mean, come on.
Well, that's a really good thing to start. Good play.
Yeah.
But you said it for us now, so
Yeah,
there you
you said it for us. You did.
My pleasure. Listen, Andrew and Claire, it was a great conversation. The coffeepreneurs kind of brought back, just preparing for the show, talking to you guys today, brought back some great memories with my wife and I in Mibs here on Long Island. How can people get in touch with you? What's the best way to find you on social?
Yeah, well, we got Instagram. We're at coffeepreneurs. We've got a website called coffeesuccesshub.com. If you go there, you'll find a load of free info and downloads and updates and our musings, as well as a contact form. So yeah, please follow us on Insta, give us a DM, or go via coffeesuccesshub.com. That'd be great.
Because our book sells all over the world. In fact, 70% of our book sales are in America.
Really?
And we work with people all over the world. Our coaching clubs, about a quarter of the people in our coaching clubs, a third perhaps, are from America. So as long as you can speak English, because I am afraid I can't speak any other languages, as long as you can speak English, the principles of what we do work all over the world. And with the power of Zoom, and
Sure.
if we've got anything positive from the last few years with COVID, everyone knows how to use Zoom. And look, we're talking to you now in America.
There we go.
It's amazing. It's amazing. We can work anywhere in the world.
Beautiful. Well said. Listen, thank you for your time, and been a great conversation. Really good conversation. Thank you so much. And this is the Profit Express. Remember to tune in and listen for the downloads of the latest and greatest shows every Wednesday, like the show I just had with the coffeepreneurs, Andrew and Claire Bowen. And again, they're authors of the best-selling book, The Daily Grind. And think about it. They're a group of people who had a business, it failed, $200,000 in a hole, reinvented themselves, reinvented the business, sold it successful, have another successful business, and a best-selling book. These are the kinds of guests that I have on the show for you, the kinds of guests that have the insight and the experience and the wisdom to help you win the battle for business. That's why we're here. So you follow the show. Follow me on Instagram at The Profit Express, Facebook, you know the deal. Hit the subscribe button, the like button. Thank you so much. And until next time, it's The Profit Express.